There comes a point where you're just tired. Not because you're lazy, not because you gave up, but because you've been trying so hard for so long and nothing seems to move. You keep showing up, doing everything right, doing more, thinking more, fixing more, but it all just feels stuck. And deep down, there's this quiet voice inside you saying, maybe I'm not supposed to try this hard. That's where trust begins. You see, the world teaches us that effort is everything, that if something isn't working, the answer must be to push harder, hustle more, wake up earlier, fix yourself. But no one teaches you the other half of the truth, that sometimes it's not about doing more, it's about trusting more. And when you finally learn to trust yourself, life, the timing, the silence, something strange happens. Things start to move. The people you used to chase start reaching out. The answers you were trying to force just land in your lap. You feel lighter, like you're no longer dragging your life behind you. Because the truth is, you don't always get what you force. You get what you're aligned with. And trust puts you in alignment. Trust isn't just about hoping things work out. It's about knowing that you don't need to control every little detail to feel safe. It's about breathing deeper, loosening your grip, and remembering that you're not here to carry the weight of the whole universe. You're just here to live. And living flows better when you stop trying so hard to make it perfect. And I know it's hard. Trust feels like a risk when all you've ever known is pressure. Letting go feels like weakness when you've built your whole life around effort. But here's the truth that no one tells you. Trust doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful. Because when you stop wasting energy on what you can't control, you finally have energy for what you can. Here's the part most people never realize. Trying too hard is often a sign you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your intuition. You don't trust your timing. You don't trust that what's meant for you will recognize you without you having to prove yourself constantly. So you overdo. You overthink. You explain yourself when no one's asking. You show up even when you're exhausted. You keep trying because the fear in your chest whispers, if I stop, everything will fall apart. But it won't. Sometimes when you finally stop trying, that's when things start clicking. Because you're no longer coming from fear, from desperation, from trying to convince life to give you what you want. You're coming from calm, from presence, from alignment. And alignment doesn't beg, it attracts. Trust means letting things breathe. It means allowing the silence without needing to fill it. It means not panicking when there's a pause in progress. Because the most important things in life, real love, peace, growth, don't show up through pressure. They grow in stillness. They show up when you stop chasing and start listening. And here's something else most people miss. The more you try to control, the more you confirm that you're not in control. That's why it always feels heavy. That's why it never lasts. Because the energy behind it is fear. And fear will always have you gripping things that aren't even meant for you. But trust allows. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It listens. It lets go of the tight grip, the timelines, the constant mental spinning. And it says, if it's meant for me, it's already on its way. That's not blind hope. That's wisdom. Because when you've lived enough life, when you've forced enough doors that led nowhere, when you've chased enough people who didn't value you, you learn that trust isn't weakness. It's a choice. A strong, quiet choice to stop leaking your energy into fear and to start investing it into peace. And that peace, it doesn't just feel good. It opens doors you didn't even know existed. Because now, instead of trying to control life, you've become the kind of person life wants to meet halfway. Let's be honest. Trust feels unnatural when all you've ever known is survival. If you grew up feeling like love had to be earned, if you learned early that success only came through pressure and burnout, if you've always felt like life rewards the ones who suffer the most, then trust will feel unfamiliar, and letting go, that will feel dangerous. But here's what no one tells you. You weren't born to suffer your way into alignment. You weren't meant to live with your jaw clenched and your chest tight, calling it discipline. There's a way to move forward without self-abandonment. There's a way to build, grow, heal, evolve, without losing yourself in the process. And that's what trust gives you. Yourself, your energy back, your breath back, your clarity back. Because instead of trying to be 10 steps ahead of everything and everyone, you finally land here, in the moment, in your body, in your peace. You're not calculating outcomes, running mental simulations, or begging the universe for reassurance anymore. You're grounded, rooted, open. And from that place, you make better decisions. You attract the right people, not because you chase them, but because they felt your stability. You stop rushing, not because you've given up, but because you finally understand the difference between force and flow. Trust doesn't mean you sit around waiting for life to happen to you. It means you stop sabotaging yourself when nothing's happening yet. It means you stop jumping in and trying to fix things just because you're uncomfortable. Because now you understand, uncomfortable doesn't mean unsafe. Silent doesn't mean stagnant. Slow doesn't mean wrong. The more you trust, the more you see that life has its own rhythm. And it's not punishing you, it's preparing you. And sometimes the only reason you're not moving forward is because you're still holding on to a version of life you were never meant to carry. And once you let that go, once you stop forcing yourself to be somewhere you're not ready for, the path opens. Not because you pushed your way through, but because you finally stopped blocking it. That's the shift. From control to trust, from burnout to balance, from proving your worth to remembering it. There's something powerful that happens when you stop needing everything to happen now. When you stop needing immediate results. When you no longer rush healing or love or your purpose, you become still enough to notice what's already working. You become aware of how much energy you are wasting by checking for progress every 5 minutes, constantly measuring, constantly comparing, constantly wondering if you're falling behind. But falling behind according to what exactly? Some timeline that was never yours to begin with? Some invisible clock that keeps you up at night but doesn't actually serve your peace? You see, when you trust, really trust, you stop reacting to every delay like it's a sign of failure. You start seeing delays as direction. You start seeing endings as redirections. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this making space for? That's the mindset shift. That's where the trying stops and the becoming begins. Because here's something most people never understand until it's too late. You can get the thing and still lose yourself in the process. You can force the relationship. You can force the career. You can force the success. But if you're disconnected, anxious, burnt out, and spiritually numb when you arrive, what was the point? That's why trust matters. Not just for getting the outcome, but for keeping your wholeness along the way. Trust builds a life that's sustainable. Force builds a life that eventually breaks down. When you move from trust, you stop compromising your values just to get ahead. You stop silencing your intuition just to fit in. You stop chasing people just because you're afraid of being alone. You start honoring your inner pace. You start listening when your body says rest. You start walking away from what no longer feels alive. And you begin to attract a completely different reality. One built on truth, not pressure. On soul, not performance. On peace, not urgency. And when that shift happens, people around you notice. Not because you told them you were healing. Not because you're trying to be seen. But because you've stopped fighting life. And now life is flowing through you, not around you. One of the most misunderstood things about trust is that people think it means doing nothing. They think trusting means sitting around, hoping life changes. But that's not trust. That's waiting. That's passivity. Real trust is active. It's a quiet confidence, not a lazy hope. It's waking up every day and showing up. Not because you're afraid, but because you know something is aligning, even if you can't see it yet. When you trust, your actions come from peace, not panic. You're no longer trying to fill every gap with noise or motion. You're no longer forcing things into place just so you can stop feeling uncomfortable. You start to let the discomfort exist without rushing to escape it. And that's powerful, because discomfort is where the truth rises. Think about it. How many bad decisions come from the fear of waiting too long? How many wrong relationships did you stay in because you didn't trust something better would show up? How many times did you say yes when everything in your body screamed no, simply because you didn't trust that your no would be respected? Trust changes that. It rewires your behavior. It teaches you how to pause before you react. It helps you step back when you're tempted to prove yourself. And it reminds you that your value isn't in how fast you move, but in how fully you align. You stop rushing into conversations just to fix your image. You stop jumping into commitments just to feel less alone. You stop trying to earn things that are meant to be freely given. And instead, you begin to wait for the right things. Not just the fast things, not just the convenient things, but the real, soul-filling, peace-anchoring things that don't require you to shrink, force, or perform. That's the kind of life trust builds, one where every no becomes protection, every delay becomes preparation, and every silence becomes sacred space for something real to grow. You stop measuring your progress in numbers, timelines, or social validation, and you start measuring it in peace, in how little you chase, in how deeply you breathe, in how soft you've become without losing your strength. That's the difference. Trust doesn't make your life easier, it makes it clearer. And clarity will always take you further than control ever could. And here's what might surprise you the most. When you really start trusting, you begin to care less about the outcome and more about your alignment with it. You don't just ask, will I get it? You start asking, does this even match the version of me I'm becoming? That shift changes everything. Because when you're no longer trying to force results just to feel safe, you finally have space to listen to yourself, to question your wants, to ask whether that thing you've been chasing even fits your life anymore, or if it's just an old survival pattern you never questioned. Trust opens up space for discernment. Without it, you'll keep rushing toward things that don't actually serve you, all because you're afraid of slowing down. But when you trust, you can slow down. And in that slowness, you see clearly. You start to feel what's true instead of what's urgent. You stop reacting to fear and start responding from wisdom. It's in that space where you stop settling, not because you're trying to prove your worth, but because you finally believe in it. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who don't even listen. You stop chasing opportunities that drain you. You stop performing for love, validation, or attention. Because now your actions aren't trying to get something, they're an expression of what you already know you carry. That's what makes trust magnetic. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's not constantly posting, proving, or announcing. It just is. Quiet, steady, grounded. And from that place, life begins to meet you differently. You start getting better offers, not just in business or work, but in how people treat you. You start having deeper conversations, not because you pushed for them, but because people feel safe in your presence. You start attracting situations that nourish your nervous system instead of overwhelming it. Because when you stop trying to outrun your fear and start walking with your trust, the entire world shifts. Not instantly, not without challenges, but with more ease, more clarity, and more flow than you've ever experienced when trying to force it all into place. You realize you don't need to chase the life you want. You just need to match it. And that matching happens in your energy, your mindset, your patience, not in your over-efforting, not in your burnout, not in your constant doing. Trust doesn't mean waiting forever. It means no longer rushing into what isn't real. So if you're still carrying the belief that trying harder will finally bring peace, let it go. Trying has its place. But trust is what carries you when effort alone starts to wear you down. It's what steadies you when nothing makes sense. It's what reminds you that what's truly meant for you will never need to be forced into your life. Because no matter how much the world celebrates hustle and speed and urgency, the most meaningful things tend to arrive quietly. They don't need you to chase them. They need you to make space for them. And that space is created by trust. Start trusting your timing. Start trusting the silence. Start trusting the process, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then, because the moment you stop pushing for it all to happen now is often the same moment everything starts aligning faster than you expected. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped getting in the way. And if this message spoke to you, if it helped you feel something soften inside, take a second to like this video. Subscribe if you want more moments like this, calm reminders that you're not behind and you've got nothing to prove. And if you made it to the end, let me know by dropping the word trust in the comments below. That one word tells me you're no longer forcing. You're finally allowing. And that changes everything.